Welcome to Growing Up in Easton. Today is September 13th, 2023, and my name is Priscilla Almquist-Olsen, your host, and this is the week of my 63rd class reunion, Oliver Ames High School. And my guest today is John Conan, a classmate who has come up from Connecticut, and welcome to the show, John. It is so wonderful to have you. You haven't changed a bit. You look exactly the same way you did in high school.
Clearly, the camera doesn't see the wrinkles.
Oh, I don't know. You don't have any wrinkles.
Yeah.
And you're well, as
Well,
my mother would say, you're well preserved.
I'm okay with that.
Good. So tell me a little bit about your early days and your early memories here in Easton.
Well, I grew up in a farm, first of all. I was not one of the townies like my dad was, but growing up in a farm, there are lots of lessons and there's hard work, and we did it all. But some of the early things I remember is my grandfather telling me when he went to show me the pigs, do not get in that pen, and I never did. Fortunately, he taught me how to gather eggs from the chickens without getting pecked to death. And later, the processing of the eggs meant candling them and learning how to do tasks like that. As I got older, the tasks got more difficult, like loading hay onto wagons and bringing that in for the cattle. The cows, he had cows for milk. And of course, there was the vegetable gardens and weeding long rows of potatoes. So it was a work childhood, but we didn't miss going down to my cousin's Peter Lewis and having football games, baseball games. As we got older, the local friends of mine, the Rideouts, the McNeils, Alan Bashan, we used to go play football on his field. And I was a Bay Roader, and there was quite a few Bay Roaders, and we're all kind of proud of it. I think we grew up in a good atmosphere.
Yes, and you learned hard work at an early age. And what impact did that have on your later life?
Well, one thing was, if anybody offers you money, don't take it. Because my grandfather wanted me to weed a row of potatoes, 50 cents a row. They're about 200 yards long. I said, well, I really don't need the money. And half an hour later, my mother said, I heard that you didn't need the money to weed for your grandfather. So go over there and weed until he tells you to stop, but do not take any money. So that was a lesson in economics at an early age. As we got older, like I said, the tasks got harder. We participated in bringing in the cows, which can be dangerous creatures if you get too close. And well, eventually I had an Uncle Arthur that lived with my grandparents, and he had had polio at a young age. So he was limited in what he could do. But what he did was get me interested in amateur radio. This would lead to a science interest in high school. And that was about age 10 to 12. And I became a radio amateur ham, so to call. The only other person in school was Ivan Rosenberg. He was a ham.
Yeah.
My call numbers were K1IXF.
You remember?
Oh, yes, I do. And I remember Ivan's too. He's going to kill me, but K1BCR. I said, how am I going to remember that? And he said, well, it's K1, Big Crazy Rabbit. Sorry, Ivan. Anyway, that was all good fun. And I learned a lot from that too about electronics and building circuits. So you're getting the gist that I'm growing up into a science field. And I was just telling Priscilla that when I took science in 9th grade, I wanted to be a scientist. When I took biology in 10th grade, I want to be a biologist. and that was, I think, Moscato taught that probably.
Biology. Yeah.
And then Mr. Simpson for chemistry. I wanted to be a chemist, and then finally Mr. Simpson in physics. I wanted to be a physicist. So that's what happened, and the rest is history.
Right. So you became a physicist, and you worked for.
Well, my first job was amazing. I went to Clark University, first of all, a little punchline for them, great university, very high standards. Small school, 1,000 people, and at the time. And the first job out of school was for Brookhaven National Laboratory. It's one of the national laboratory chains, and we did nuclear research, and I just learned a tremendous amount from those folks. They all taught me everything. And while I was doing that, we were raising a couple of small kids, and the memory I remember most about doing that was we were teaching the kids at that age, like 5 or 6, manners. And one day I came home, had supper, headed off to class, and one of the boys said, "Bye, Dad. Thanks for visiting." I got to tell you, I had tears in my eyes all the way to work, all the way to class that night. It was a 60-mile drive to Adelphi University, where I eventually got my master's degree in physics. But that's what I remember,
Wow.
Not much else of that. And then took the job, a second job in Idaho for a year. And that was interesting, but it wasn't in the direction I wanted to go. It had to do with analyzing the particles of deteriorating uranium from fuel rods, and we can't get into that. Sorry. And then my last job, and it lasted 42 and a half years, was with combustion engineering, which eventually turned into ABB, ASEA Brown Boveri, and they did commercial power plant production, and I worked in the nuclear core part of that, which meant I did several cores. I was the lead on the core for Millstone reactor down in Connecticut. Florida Power and Light had a plant, St. Lucie. Calvert Cliffs was in a BG&E plant in Maryland, and I think that was probably it. I might be missing one, but after a while it gets to be old hand, and after 5 years I decided I wanted to change again. But I didn't leave the company. There was always work at the company. I just moved into quality analysis and follow up on problems. What do you have to do to fix them? And there from project management after that.
Wow. So Mr. Simpson and that physics class had an incredible impact on the what's the trajectory of your life?
Yes, very much so. But don't leave out Kay Healy. Probably the teacher I expected most, because she treated us all the same. I can use a little example. I'll embarrass Eddie Meehan. One day he was 2 seconds late for class. Down the office, get a slip. No free ride for Mr. Meehan, even though he was a New England class runner, miler, very nice, and he's teaching math down on close to the Cape now. And those are my memories. Those are the memories I have.
Yeah. So did you have a bike, and did you bike around?
Oh my. I want to say right off the bat, you interviewed Stan, John, Clark earlier. And the man is a hero. He will not admit that. But what he's done for Alzheimer's is incredible. 25 years almost 400,000 or just over $400,000 raised. And I've biked for 25 years for multiple sclerosis rides.
Oh.
The most I think I pulled together was about 40,000. 10% of what, I mean, he is just a hero for doing that. It's a passion.
And his wife does all the administrative work, he
Donna,
told us.
Donna, we visited with them last week, I think it was, or the week before last, down at Gales Ferry. First time in 50 years that I've seen him, 60 years.
Were you at the 50th reunion?
Probably saw him there,
you
but
did.
there was no socialization.
I see.
But wonderful people, and his dedication is wonderful. And I thought I was doing well, with biking. But it's a sideline. It's a way to keep physical, keep moving. At a certain part in my career, I stopped playing soccer after college. Would play 2 or 3 times a week. In the summer, in the wintertime, we'd play basketball all winter, 2 or 3 times a week, just to stay in shape. Nothing special. And when I injured a knee, I took up biking because I could do that. Still play golf. That's for John Downey. And John and I were golfing friends even in high school, and we have continued that for a long time. Sometimes big gaps of not seeing each other, especially when he was in the Navy. But see him quite often.
Well, I think it's wonderful that you've kept up a relationship with some of the classmates. I mean, that's great.
Really, I'm just going to take back a little bit on that, okay?
Okay.
One of the things in looking at the Eastoner, which you all have, and going through here and reading everything, I found myself a bit sad that I didn't work harder at maintaining some of the good friendships. Now, relatives like Linda Roden Beale, sure, I've kept up with her. And as a consequence, have kept up with the Burkes. Kelly, my mother and her mother were both great friends. So that's sort of lasted through the years also. But beyond that, there were so many friends that I just never called.
Well, don't you think we get so busy with our own lives, with such responsibilities, not just our employment, but with our spouses, with our children. And so much of our energy goes into our kids especially, and delivering for them whatever they need. And, so I think life gets in the way sometimes. It's really not a good excuse, but it's reality.
It is to a degree, but I don't even have a half a dozen. I have friends who have a half a dozen friends or buddies that they get together with once a year, and I don't even have that.
Well,
I miss that, and I've actually been trying to foster some new friendships.
Right, you're doing that now. I mean, you met with Stanton Clark 2 weeks ago, and hadn't, and you were buddies in school, and now you're going to be, and now you're free too. Your children aren't at home. You have grandkids.
No, we weren't fortunate enough to have grandkids. I would have loved kids.
Yeah,
my sister had them all.
Oh, okay.
But she got everything.
Okay, so but you're free. You're retired.
Right.
Now there are no excuses, so you can start to do what your heart tells you to do.
Yeah, and I want to correct one thing. The Downeys, we've stayed close with the Downeys ever since graduation, except for some larger gaps due to Navy, school, kids, stuff like that. But it's pretty well been a very healthy relationship, and we treasure that.
Yeah. Well, I know that you always came up for the day after Christmas and going out to breakfast together, a whole bunch of you.
Beals, Kellys, Downeys, and you've been to one or two.
No, I didn't.
I thought you went to
no,
one.
and I always wanted to go, and I was always invited. but that was the day after Christmas that I wouldn't be
Oh.
home. I'd be with my daughter, and I'd be.
And then
I-
there was
yeah.
Eleanor Freitas
Yeah.
has been, that I can recall, and I'm sorry we don't have her anymore.
I know. Miss
And
her terribly.
that's the other thing. 43% of our classmates are gone.
Mm. Well, we have 36 who have gone out of 100. So is that 36%?
Well, I did a higher number. I found a higher number.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
Okay.
I did.
Mm.
Out of 82, I figured 82. That's what if I ran the
Okay.
numbers on the wrong.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was just
be
relying
less.
on the committee telling me that
Mm.
we were 100. It sounded like a little too many, though.
82, I counted up with Elaine Carroll, genius with Excel.
Mm.
She and I have been working together. She's very science-minded, and she's very good with records. Should have known she was the class treasurer. You know.
I don't know what I could have done without her. I was chairman of the reunion committee,
You too.
and without her, oh my God. But, you know, I helped her with the editing, which is, I'm a good editor. But she is the numbers person, and she knows she's detail oriented, so she doesn't forget a thing that has to go in that letter to the classmates. And yeah, and she's always changing the addresses and the email addresses when she gets them. And it's a funny thing, she didn't have Richie Crabb and Betsy Griner.
She does now.
She has, yes.
I think she has it.
She has the address, 470, well, I'm not going to say it online, but she told me that yesterday morning. She said, I think I found them, and this is the address, and they're living in Rainham, not in Bourne anymore. And she gave me the address. So I said, well, I'm going to go there. So yesterday, late afternoon, I went there, and Betsy came to the door. I said, Betsy?
Really?
She said, Priscilla? I was grateful she recognized me. And so anyway, they can't come. Richie has some challenges, but
Oh.
they're probably going to Zoom tomorrow. We're having a Zoom at our luncheon at 3:30. The people who can't come, Ivan Rosenberg, your friend and fellow physicist, arranged that. And I arranged with ECAT here to have so that we have the ability to speak to them. I don't understand the technology, but I'm happy.
You don't
I go
have
with it.
to.
I know. And I'm so grateful for ECAT to come through for our class like that. And they have filmed today's meet and greet, and they're going to be there tomorrow filming people, and I'm going to be interviewing as many people as possible. And they'll be there to help us with the Zoom, and I'm very grateful. So we're trying to make do. The Zoom is helping us for people who can't come. You know, their spouses or themselves are mentally or physically challenged, and that's the way it is when you're 81 years old.
Zoom is great.
And you're not 81 yet.
No, I'm only 80. I was the baby of the
You
class.
were the baby, right?
Yeah, that's been known far and wide. Now I think I found Marietta Scott too.
You did?
I don't know. I found one in Pennsylvania, and I'm working on clarifying.
Good, because
How many people are Marietta Scott?
I know, and I had her, what I thought was her telephone number, so I called her and told her how much I'd just love to see her again. And,
Oh, you did have her number?
I did. Well, I have a number. I don't know if it was, if she answered as Marietta. I can't remember. But Lainey found that phone number. So
I got to talk to Lainey.
Yeah, talk to Lainey. Anyway, so we went through Easton as a wonderful supporting community and very stable. That's what Stanton talks about, how things were very even and no drama, no chaos, just a stable, calm kind of place so that one could grow and learn and be a good friend.
Yeah.
So all of that has played well, I think, for us, don't you?
And I do think my experiences in Easton all helped me, from being on the farm and learning to work, from being with teachers that wanted to teach, to being with classmates graduating and going all different directions, which was terribly interesting. And then coming back together at these reunions and exchanging notes and stories and things like that. I think it's been very strong. And I want to say, I want to put in a pitch for the Historical Society in Easton. I'm a member of 2 other historical societies in towns that I live in, and they're good, but I think this is a real step above most. I've learned more about Easton than I ever knew. It's fascinating, and it's a good way to keep up with people and what your town is doing. So I got my sister to join.
Really?
From Tucson. Yeah.
That's great. And they have so many wonderful publications for sale, very inexpensive. They come out every year with a publication called Reminiscences, and this is the 14th year, and there are stories in there by some people who are no longer with us, and all about growing up in Easton, but about different, like the Moore's car, but really personal stories. And
I have a story in there.
You have a story in there?
Did you meet the story? And my sister tells me you got it wrong. I remember I was probably 4 at the time, and she was 6, and I had a totally different view of the story than she did.
Interesting.
And when she got the Reminiscences, she read it. She said, "That's not what it was."
What book was this? What year? Do you remember?
Which book? I haven't been beyond. Oh no, it might be 12 or 13.
Okay.
I forget, because it was a few years ago.
Yeah, I have up to 2022, I think. I'll be getting.
It was a little kid's remembrance
Yeah,
story.
right, yeah.
And I'm sure I got it wrong.
So Hazel Varela, one of our 2 historians, with Ed Hands being the other, was present today at our meet and greet, and she talked about the Reminiscences, and it's coming out in a few weeks. So get down there. It's only $10. It's a wonderful,
great read.
Great read.
Great read, and you'll learn so much about the Ames family.
Right.
Which is fascinating.
Yeah. And today we enjoyed Freddie Ames. He had a tour of Oak Saints Memorial Hall, and I even learned stuff from him. It was so interesting. He's a wellspring of information. And Ed Hands took people through the Queeset House and the gardens, and that's a fascinating story too. Winthrop Ames, the Broadway producer of over 200 musicals and plays, and best friends with Catherine Cornell and Roger Arliss, I think his name was, back in the 30s, 40s. You people don't remember?
We did a tour, Linda and I did a tour last year at the Queeset House. Actually, I wanted to take her to the library to show her where I got in the most trouble and had the most fun. And the Queeset House was open. So I said, well, let's go down there. And we got a tour, and it was wonderful. It was probably about 2 hours, something like that.
And the gardens have been restored.
The gardens are fabulous.
Fabulous, yeah.
Fabulous.
And when we were growing up, I don't remember those gardens, but that's because it was like a jungle of vines covering the entire thing. You couldn't see it.
I didn't even know what the Queeset House was when I was a kid.
Oh, I knew about the house, but not the gardens. Yeah. Well, anyway, this has been fun. Tomorrow's going to be even more fun. We're going to have our reunion luncheon and more time to share memories.
And then breakfast at Kelly's.
Yes, breakfast on Friday at 9:30 at Kelly's Place, just over the line in Norton. So anybody out there who hears this, you may certainly come and join us.
Yeah, that would be great.
John, thank you so much.
It's a good place to go. We go there every Christmas, day after Christmas.
Right. So thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having.
You're welcome. And for the viewers, thank you for being part of this too. Hope you enjoyed the program. We certainly enjoyed producing it. Until next time, be well.